A millionaire pretended to be a pizza delivery man and went to meet his fiancée's parents. Ethan Blackwell looked at himself in the mirror of his luxurious penthouse in the heart of New York City. At 32 years old, he was the very image of success, tall, athletic, with a face that seemed sculpted by Greek gods and green eyes that sparkled with intelligence. However, that morning, like so many others, he felt empty. Heir to the Blackwell real estate empire, Ethan had it all: money, power, women. But as he adjusted his Italian silk tie, he wondered if he would ever find something to fill the void in his chest. "Mr. Blackwell, your father is waiting for you in the office," his assistant announced through the intercom. Ethan sighed. Another day, another meeting, another million-dollar acquisition. The routine was slowly killing him. That afternoon, after a tedious day of work, he decided to take a walk through the picturesque Greenwich Village neighborhood. He needed to escape the suffocating world of business, even if only for a few hours. As he walked along the narrow cobblestone streets, the aroma of freshly baked bread drew him to a small bakery. "The Golden Loaf," read the sign above the door. Upon entering, his eyes fell on the figure behind the counter, a young woman of about 28, with brown hair tied in a messy ponytail and an apron covered in flour, was attending to customers with a radiant smile. "Good afternoon. How can I help you?" asked the young woman, fixing her honey-colored eyes on Ethan's. For a moment, Ethan was speechless. There was something in that gaze, in that sincere smile, that left him paralyzed. What do you recommend?" he stammered, feeling like a nervous teenager. The young woman let out a giggle. "Well, our walnut and raisin bread is the house specialty, although if you prefer something more traditional, the country loaf never fails." "I'll take both," Ethan replied, eager to prolong the conversation. As the young woman packaged the bread, Ethan noticed the way her hands worked with skill and affection. Every movement seemed like a caress to the product she had crafted with such care. "I'm Olivia, by the way," she said, handing him the bag. "I haven't seen you around here before." Michael," Ethan corrected himself quickly. "My name is Michael. I just moved to the neighborhood." Why had he lied? Even he didn't know. Perhaps it was the desire to be someone else, if only for a moment. "Well, welcome, Michael," Olivia smiled. "I hope to see you around here more often." Ethan left the bakery with his heart racing. For the first time in years, he felt a spark of excitement, but also guilt. He had lied, and now he didn't know how to retract it. The following days, Ethan couldn't get Olivia out of his head. Her smile, her authenticity, the passion with which she spoke about her craft, everything about her captivated him. It was like a breath of fresh air in his stagnant life. One night, while dining alone in his penthouse, he had a crazy idea. If he wanted to really get to know Olivia, he would have to maintain his facade. But how? The answer came in the form of a television advertisement: pizza delivery drivers needed. Ethan smiled. It was crazy, but for the first time in a long time, he felt alive. The next day, after inventing an excuse at the office, Ethan showed up at a local pizzeria. With a fake name and a made-up story about needing extra work, he got the job as a night delivery driver. That same night, dressed in the pizzeria uniform and riding a scooter, Ethan roamed the streets of Greenwich Village. His heart was pounding as he approached the Golden Loaf. Olivia was closing the bakery when Ethan, or rather, Michael, stopped in front of her. "Pizza delivery?" he asked with a nervous smile. Olivia looked at him surprised. "Michael, you're a pizza delivery guy." Yes, extra work at night," Ethan improvised. "In fact, I have a delivery nearby. Want me to give you a ride home?" Olivia hesitated for a moment, but then smiled. "Sure, why not?" As Ethan drove her on the scooter, he felt an excitement he hadn't experienced in years. The wind on his face, the warmth of Olivia's body against his back, her laughter as they took a curve, everything felt real, authentic. What Ethan didn't know was that this little deception was about to trigger a series of events that would test not only his relationship with Olivia, but also everything he thought he knew about himself and his place in the world. The days turned into weeks, and Ethan found himself living a double life. By day, he was the ruthless heir to the Blackwell empire, closing million-dollar deals and attending high-level events. By night, he transformed into Michael, the simple pizza delivery guy who was slowly winning Olivia's heart. Every night, after his shift at the pizzeria, Ethan would stop by the bakery. Sometimes, Olivia would be waiting for him with a cup of coffee and a slice of freshly baked cake. Other times, they would take a walk through the cobblestone streets of Greenwich Village, laughing and sharing stories. "You know, I never thought I'd feel so comfortable with someone," Olivia confessed one night as they walked under the streetlights. "You're different, Michael." Ethan felt a pang of guilt. "You're special too, Olivia. I've never met anyone like you." And it was true. In Ethan's world, relationships had always been transactional, love for status, companionship for money. But with Olivia, everything was genuine. She got excited about the little things, the smell of freshly baked bread, a sunset, a song on the radio. However, maintaining the charade was becoming increasingly difficult. Ethan had to invent excuses for his absences at the company, and more than once he was almost discovered. One afternoon, while closing an important deal, his father, Richard Blackwell, confronted him. "Ethan, what the hell is wrong with you lately? You're distracted. You're late for meetings. Is there something I should know?" Ethan swallowed hard. "No, Father, I'm just exploring new investment opportunities." Richard looked at him suspiciously, but didn't insist. That night, as Ethan prepared for his shift at the pizzeria, he received a call from Olivia. "Michael, would you like to have dinner at my place tomorrow? My parents want to meet you." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Meet Olivia's parents? That would take his lie to a new level. But hearing the excitement in Olivia's voice, he couldn't refuse. "Sure, I'd love to," he replied, feeling the knot in his stomach tighten. The next night, Ethan showed up at the modest home of the Taylor family with a bottle of cheap wine and his heart in his throat. Olivia greeted him with a kiss on the cheek, and the aroma of home-cooked food filled his senses. "Mom, Dad, this is Michael," Olivia introduced proudly. Olivia's parents, Sarah and Robert, looked him up and down. Ethan could feel the disapproval in their eyes. "So, you're a pizza delivery guy," Robert said, in a tone that made it clear how unimpressed he was. "Yes, sir," Ethan replied, feeling his mouth go dry. "It's an honest job." "Honest, yes, but barely enough to support a family, don't you think?" Sarah interjected, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Olivia looked mortified. "Mom, please." The dinner proceeded in a tense atmosphere. Ethan tried to be charming, talking about his supposed passion for gastronomy and his plans to open his own restaurant someday. But he could feel the disdainful looks from Olivia's parents. "Our daughter deserves the best," Robert said at the end of the evening. "I hope you understand that, Michael." Ethan left the Taylor house feeling miserable. On one hand, he was furious at the treatment he had received. He, Ethan Blackwell, one of the richest men in New York, treated as if he wasn't worthy. But on the other hand, guilt was eating him alive. It was all a lie, and Olivia didn't deserve that. "I'm so sorry about how my parents treated you," Olivia said, accompanying him to the door. "They don't understand that money isn't everything." Ethan looked into her eyes, seeing in them a mixture of love and concern. At that moment, he made a decision. He had to tell her the truth, regardless of the consequences. "Olivia, But before he could continue, Ethan's phone rang. It was his father. "Ethan, I need you to come to the office immediately. We have a crisis with the Battery Park City project." Reality hit Ethan like a sledgehammer. He couldn't escape who he really was, no matter how hard he tried. "I'm sorry, I have to go," he said to Olivia, giving her a quick kiss. "I'll call you tomorrow." As he walked away, Ethan didn't see the look of suspicion in Olivia's eyes. She had noticed the change in his voice, the way he had straightened up when he received the call, and above all, she had seen the luxury watch that peeked out from under his jacket sleeve when he said goodbye. Olivia closed the door with 1,000 questions spinning in her head. Who was Michael really? And more importantly, why was he lying to her? The following days were torture for Ethan. The crisis in the Battery Park City project kept him busy day and night, forcing him to cancel his meetings with Olivia. Every time they spoke on the phone, he could feel the distance growing between them. Olivia, for her part, couldn't shake the inconsistencies she had noticed in Michael. Determined to uncover the truth, she began her own investigation. One afternoon, while cleaning the bakery, Olivia found a business card that Michael had dropped during one of his visits. Ethan Blackwell, CEO, Blackwell Real Estate Group. Her world came crashing down. With trembling hands, she searched the internet. The photos left no doubt. Michael, her Michael, was actually Ethan Blackwell, heir to one of the largest real estate empires in America. Tears of anger and confusion ran down her cheeks. Why had he lied to her? Had it all been a game for him? Meanwhile, Ethan was struggling with his own demons, the pressure from his father, the guilt of lying to Olivia, the desire to escape his privileged life. It all mixed into a whirlwind of emotions. Finally, after an exhausting week, Ethan decided it was time to face the truth. That night, he showed up at the bakery just before closing time. "Olivia, we need to talk," he said, his heart in his throat. She looked at him with a mixture of pain and disappointment. "Yes, Ethan, I think we have a lot to talk about." The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan felt the ground opening beneath his feet. You know," he stammered. "I know everything," Olivia replied, her voice trembling with emotion. "Why, Ethan, why lie to me?" Ethan collapsed into a chair, feeling smaller than ever. I was afraid that you'd judge me for my money, for my last name. I wanted you to know me for who I really am, not for what I have." Olivia looked at him, her eyes full of confusion and pain. "And who are you really, Ethan? The successful businessman or the pizza delivery guy? How can I know which part of you is real?" Ethan ran his hands through his hair, desperate. "Everything we shared is real, Olivia. My feelings, our conversations, the laughter. That's the most authentic thing I've experienced in years." "But you built all of that on a lie," Olivia replied, her voice breaking. "How can I trust you now?" The silence that followed was heavy, loaded with unspoken emotions and broken hopes. Finally, Olivia spoke. "I need time. Ethan, time to process all of this, to understand who you really are." Ethan nodded, feeling his heart breaking. "I understand. I'll give you all the space you need. But please, believe me when I say that my feelings for you are real." He left the bakery feeling like he was leaving a part of himself behind, the part that, for the first time in his life, had felt truly alive. The following days were a whirlwind for both of them. Ethan immersed himself in work, trying to drown his pain in endless meetings and contracts. Olivia, for her part, struggled to maintain normalcy in the bakery, although her mind was miles away. What neither of them knew was that their story was about to get even more complicated. Richard Blackwell, intrigued by his son's erratic behavior in recent weeks, had decided to investigate, and what he discovered filled him with anger and concern. "Ethan!" Richard thundered, bursting into his son's office. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Ethan looked up from his documents, surprised. "What are you talking about, Father?" Richard threw an envelope full of photographs onto the desk. They showed Ethan, dressed as a delivery man, with Olivia. "Have you lost your mind? Disguising yourself as a delivery man to court a baker? Do you have any idea how this could affect the company if it goes public?" Ethan felt rage growing inside him. "My personal life is none of your business, Father. And Olivia isn't just a baker, she's a distraction," Richard interrupted. "A distraction you can't afford. We have the Battery Park City project at stake, million-dollar contracts to sign. I can't allow you to throw everything away for a whim." "A whim?" Ethan stood up, facing his father. "For the first time in my life, I feel something real, something that has nothing to do with money or power. And I'm not going to give that up." Richard narrowed his eyes. "We'll see. Remember, Ethan, that everything you have, everything you are, is thanks to this company. Don't forget that." With those words, he left the office, leaving Ethan boiling with rage and frustration. Meanwhile, in Greenwich Village, Olivia was facing her own challenges. The bakery was going through financial difficulties, and the bank was threatening to foreclose on the mortgage. "I don't know what we're going to do, Mom," Olivia said, reviewing the accounts for the umpteenth time. "If we don't get a loan soon, we'll have to close." Sarah hugged her daughter. "We'll find a solution, honey. We always do." What Olivia didn't know was that Richard Blackwell, determined to keep his son away from her, was pulling strings behind the scenes. He had spoken to the bank, pressuring them to accelerate the foreclosure. That night, as she was closing the bakery, Olivia received a call that would change everything. "Miss Taylor, this is from Midwest Bank. I regret to inform you that your loan application has been denied. Furthermore, due to late payments, we are forced to initiate the foreclosure process." Olivia felt the world crumbling around her. The bakery wasn't just her business, it was her family's legacy, her parents' dream. On an impulse, she dialed Ethan's number. Despite everything that had happened, she needed to talk to someone, and he was the only person who came to mind. Ethan answered on the first ring. "Olivia, are you okay?" Olivia's voice broke. "Ethan, I'm going to lose everything. The bakery. I don't know what to do." Without thinking twice, Ethan responded, "I'm on my way. We'll find a solution. I promise you." As he sped towards Greenwich Village, Ethan made a decision. He would use his resources, his connections, whatever it took to help Olivia. But this time he would do it with complete honesty. What he didn't know was that his father, upon learning of the bakery's situation, was already plotting his next move. A move that would test not only the love between Ethan and Olivia, but also the integrity of both. Ethan arrived at the bakery in record time, finding Olivia with red eyes and trembling hands. Seeing her like this broke his heart. "Olivia, tell me exactly what's happening," he said, taking her hands in his. Between sobs, Olivia explained the situation, the accumulated debts, the bank's refusal, the imminent loss of the family business. Ethan listened attentively, his mind working at full speed. He knew he could solve the problem with a simple phone call, but he was also aware that would only make things worse between them. "Listen," he finally said, "I know you don't trust me right now, but on one condition, total transparency from now on. No more lies, no more secrets. Deal?" Ethan smiled, feeling that, for the first time in days, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. The following days were an emotional roller coaster. Ethan and Olivia worked side by side, reviewing numbers, developing strategies. Slowly, the trust between them began to rebuild. However, Richard Blackwell's shadow loomed over them without their knowledge. Frustrated by his son's persistence, Richard decided to take more drastic measures. One afternoon, while Ethan was in an important meeting, Richard showed up at the bakery. "Miss Taylor, I'm Richard Blackwell, Ethan's father." He introduced himself with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'd like to talk to you about an important matter." Olivia, surprised, invited him into the back room. "I'll be direct," Richard began. "The relationship between you and my son is a mistake. You belong to different worlds. Why don't we make this easier for everyone?" He took a check from his jacket and slid it across the table. "This amount will solve all your financial problems. In exchange, I only ask that you stay away from Ethan." Olivia looked at the check, feeling a mixture of indignation and temptation. With that money, she could save the bakery, secure her family's future. But the cost? "Mr. Blackwell," she finally said, pushing the check back, "I appreciate your offer, but you'll have to understand that my feelings are not for sale." Richard narrowed his eyes. "Everyone has a price, Miss Taylor. It's just a matter of finding the right one." At that moment, the backroom door burst open. Ethan was there, his face a mask of fury and disappointment. "How dare you, father!" he roared. "How do you think you can buy and sell people as if they were properties?" Richard stood up, facing his son. "I'm only trying to protect you, Ethan. This adventure of yours could cost the company millions. Is that what you want?" "What I want," Ethan replied, his voice trembling with emotion, "is to be happy. And for the first time in my life, I know what that means." He turned to Olivia, who was watching the scene in shock. "Olivia, I'm sorry for all of this. I'll understand if you want me to leave and never come back." Olivia looked at Ethan, then at Richard, and finally at the check on the table. At that moment, she made a decision that would change the course of their lives. "Ethan," she said, her voice firm, "stay. I think you and I have a lot to talk about." Richard, seeing that he had lost this battle, headed for the door. Before leaving, he turned to his son. "This isn't over, Ethan. Remember where you come from and what's at stake." When the door closed behind Richard, Ethan and Olivia looked at each other, aware that they were at a crossroads. The path they chose from that moment would define not only their relationship, but also who they were as people. "What now?" Olivia asked, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan took her hand. "Now, we start over. No lies, no external pressures, just you and me, facing whatever comes together." As the sun set over New York City, illuminating the small bakery with a golden glow, Ethan and Olivia sealed their promise with a kiss that tasted of new beginnings, revealed truths, and a future uncertain but full of possibilities. What they didn't know was that their greatest challenge was yet to come, a challenge that would test not only their love, but also their principles and everything they believed in. The following weeks were a whirlwind for Ethan and Olivia. Working together, they managed to restructure the bakery's debts and develop a solid business plan. The Golden Loaf began to see an upturn in its sales, and for the first time in months, the future looked promising. However, the threat of Richard Blackwell still loomed over them like a dark cloud. Ethan knew his father wouldn't give up easily, and that kept him constantly alert. One afternoon, as Ethan was helping Olivia close the bakery, he received a call that left him cold. "Ethan, it's Martin, your assistant. You need to come to the office immediately. Your father has called an emergency board meeting." With his heart in his throat, Ethan hastily said goodbye to Olivia and headed to the Blackwell Group headquarters. Upon arrival, he found the boardroom in a state of agitation. Richard was standing at the head of the table, his face a mask of determination. Ethan, good of you to join us. We were about to start." Ethan took a seat, feeling the gazes of the other directors upon him. His father began to speak. "Gentlemen, I've gathered you today because our company faces a crisis provoked by my son's lack of judgment and irresponsible actions." He projected photos of Ethan dressed as a pizza delivery man, with Olivia onto the screen. Murmurs filled the room. Ethan has been leading a double life, putting the reputation and interests of our company at risk. Therefore, I propose that he be removed from his position as CEO, at least temporarily. The room erupted into chaos. Ethan stood up, furious. "This is ridiculous. My personal life has nothing to do with my performance in the company. The numbers speak for themselves." "Numbers aren't everything, son," Richard replied. "Trust and image are equally important in our business." The discussion went on for hours. Finally, a vote was taken. To Ethan's horror, the majority of the board supported his father's motion. In an instant, he found himself stripped of his position, his office, everything he had known. Stunned, Ethan left the building in the middle of the night. Without thinking, his steps led him to Olivia's bakery. The light was still on. Olivia, seeing him enter with a distraught face, immediately knew something was wrong. "Ethan, what happened?" He collapsed into a chair, telling her everything between broken sobs. Olivia listened in silence, her heart breaking for the man she loved. "I've lost everything, Olivia," Ethan concluded. "My job, my identity, everything I've worked for over the years." Olivia took his hands in hers. "You haven't lost everything, Ethan. You have me, and we have each other." Those words, so simple yet so powerful, were like a balm for Ethan. For the first time since he left the boardroom, he felt he could breathe again. "You're right," he said, with a small smile. "As long as I have you, I have everything I need." That night marked a turning point in their relationship. Ethan, stripped of his title and fortune, found himself rediscovering who he really was, and Olivia, facing her own fears and insecurities, realized the strength she had within. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions and difficult decisions. Ethan, determined not to be defeated, decided to fight against the board's decision. He hired a lawyer and began preparing his case. Meanwhile, Olivia had a brilliant idea to help the bakery. "What if we combine your business knowledge with my bakery experience?" she proposed one night. "We could expand the business, create a line of gourmet products, maybe even open more branches." Ethan looked at her with admiration. "You're brilliant, you know that. I think we could do something really special together." Thus was born Flavors of the Village, a line of artisanal products that combined the Taylor family's traditional recipes with a modern marketing strategy. Ethan put all his knowledge and contacts at the service of the project, while Olivia contributed her creativity and culinary skills. The launch was a resounding success. Local media fell in love with the story of the small neighborhood bakery reinventing itself, and soon Flavors of the Village became the gastronomic sensation of New York City. However, success brought with it new challenges. Richard Blackwell, furious to see his son thriving despite his efforts to bring him down, decided to play his last card. One morning, Ethan received an unexpected call. "Mr. Blackwell, this is Inspector Rodriguez from the Financial Crimes Unit. We need you to come in for questioning about certain financial irregularities detected in the Flavors of the Village One company." Ethan's world wobbled. He knew everything was in order, that they hadn't done anything illegal, but he also knew his father had contacts everywhere. When he told Olivia, she turned pale. "Ethan, do you think your father would be capable of anything?" he responded grimly. "But we're not going to let him intimidate us. We've built this together, with honesty and hard work, and that's how we're going to defend it." The following days were a nightmare. Ethan and Olivia were subjected to intense interrogations, their accounts were frozen, and the press began to speculate about a possible fraud. But in the midst of the storm, their love grew stronger. Every night, after long hours of meetings with lawyers and accountants, they took refuge in each other, finding comfort and strength in their union. One afternoon, while reviewing documents in the back of the bakery, Olivia made a startling discovery. "Ethan, look at this," she said, pointing to a series of suspicious transactions. "These transfers, we didn't make them." Ethan examined the documents, feeling anger growing inside him. "It's my father's work. He must have used his contacts at the bank to manipulate our accounts. But this means," Olivia began. "It means we have evidence," Ethan completed, a spark of hope lighting up in his eyes. "Evidence that we've been victims of a conspiracy." Armed with this new information, Ethan and Olivia decided to counterattack. They contacted a trusted investigative journalist and handed over all the evidence they had gathered. The article published the next day shook the foundations of the Blackwell empire. Titled, "The Price of Love: How Real Estate Tycoon." Richard Blackwell tried to destroy his own son. The report detailed the sabotage campaign orchestrated by Richard. The reaction was immediate. The Financial Crimes Unit announced they were closing the investigation against Flavors of the Village and opening a new one against Richard Blackwell. The Blackwell Group's board of directors called an emergency meeting. Ethan and Olivia, exhausted but determined, presented themselves before the board. This time, it was Ethan who took the floor. "Gentlemen, a few months ago I was here, accused of putting this company at risk by following my heart. Today I'm here to show you that following my heart was the best decision I've ever made in my life." With eloquence and passion, Ethan explained how his experience with Olivia and Flavors of the Village had taught him invaluable lessons about business, integrity, and the true meaning of success. "I propose a new vision for the Blackwell Group," he concluded. "A vision that combines our financial power with a real commitment to the communities in which we operate. A vision that demonstrates that success and ethics are not mutually exclusive." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, slowly, one of the directors began to applaud. Others joined in, and soon the room erupted in an ovation. Richard Blackwell, pale and defeated, stood up. "Son, I'm sorry. I was wrong." Ethan looked at his father, years of resentment and pain reflected in his eyes. Then, feeling Olivia's hand in his, he responded, "We have a lot to talk about, Father, but I think it's time for a new beginning for all of us." As they left the boardroom, Olivia looked at Ethan with pride and love. "You know, I think I just fell in love with you all over again." Ethan smiled, feeling that finally everything was falling into place. "And I with you, my love. And this is just the beginning." The following months were a whirlwind of changes and new challenges. Ethan was reinstated as CEO of the Blackwell Group, but with a new vision and a renewed sense of purpose. Under his leadership, the company began investing in community development projects and affordable housing. Flavors of the Village became the spearhead of a new initiative to support small local businesses. Olivia, for her part, found herself navigating a world that was previously alien to her. Suddenly, she was attending charity galas and business meetings, always maintaining her authenticity and warmth. One afternoon, as they strolled through Central Park, Ethan stopped in front of a mosaic. "You know, this park reminds me of us," he said thoughtfully. Olivia looked at him intrigued. "How so?" "Look at these pieces," Ethan explained, pointing to the colorful mosaic. "Each one is unique, different, but together they form something beautiful and harmonious. That's us. We come from different worlds, but together, we're something extraordinary." Olivia felt her heart melting. "Ethan Blackwell, are you making me a proposal?" He smiled, pulling a small box from his pocket. "Olivia Taylor, would you do me the honor of turning our mosaic into a permanent work of art?" Between tears and laughter, Olivia accepted. The ring, a beautiful design that combined diamonds with small colored stones in a pattern reminiscent of Central Park's mosaics, was the perfect symbol of their union. The news of their engagement spread quickly. To their surprise, it was received with joy not only by their friends and the Greenwich Village community, but also by much of New York's business world. However, not everything was rosy. Richard Blackwell, though repentant of his past actions, was still struggling to fully accept the new direction his son was giving the company. One night, during a family dinner, the topic came up. "Ethan, I understand your desire to do good," Richard said, with some tension in his voice. "But I fear you're putting everything we've built at risk." Ethan took a deep breath, seeking patience. "Father, I'm not putting anything at risk. I'm securing our future. The world is changing, and companies that don't adapt, that don't show social responsibility, will be left behind." Olivia, who had remained silent until then, intervened. "Mr. Blackwell, if I may, when I met Ethan, I thought he was a simple pizza delivery guy. I fell in love with him for who he was, not for what he had. And it was that version of Ethan, authentic and compassionate, that inspired Flavors of the Village. Our success didn't come from big investments or complicated strategies. It came from genuine connection with the community, from understanding their needs and desires." Richard listened attentively, his expression gradually softening. "What Ethan is doing," Olivia continued, "is applying that same philosophy on a large scale. He's not abandoning business. He's redefining what it means to be successful." There was a moment of silence. Then, to everyone's surprise, Richard smiled. "You know, Olivia, I think I now understand why my son fell in love with you. You have a wisdom that goes beyond business books." He turned to Ethan. "Son, maybe this old dog can still learn some new tricks. Tell me more about your plans." That night marked a new chapter in the relationship between father and son. Although there were still disagreements and heated discussions, there was now also mutual respect and a willingness to listen and learn from each other. Meanwhile, wedding preparations were advancing at full speed. Olivia and Ethan had decided to have a ceremony that reflected the fusion of their two worlds. "You taught me that true luxury isn't in the things we own, but in the connections we create. You showed me a world full of authenticity and love that I never knew existed. With you, I not only found the love of my life, but also my true purpose." Olivia, with tears in her eyes, responded, "Ethan, when I met you as Michael, the pizza delivery guy, I saw a man who yearned for something more than material wealth. I saw someone who wanted to make a difference. Today, as Ethan Blackwell, you're still that same man, but now you have the power to make those dreams come true. I'm proud to stand by your side on this journey. As they danced their first waltz as husband and wife, surrounded by an eclectic mix of guests that symbolized the union of their two worlds, Ethan and Olivia knew that this was just the beginning of their great adventure together. What they didn't know was that fate still had some surprises in store for them, challenges that would test their love and determination once again. The first year of marriage was like a dream for Ethan and Olivia. Their love continued to flourish, and their joint projects were bearing fruit beyond their expectations. Flavors of the Village had expanded to other cities across the country, and the Blackwell Group was being internationally acclaimed for its innovative approach to socially responsible business. However, as often happens in life, the calm preceded the storm. It all began on a spring afternoon. Olivia was in the kitchen of their new home, a beautiful penthouse in the heart of Greenwich Village, when she suddenly felt an intense dizziness. Before she could call Ethan, everything went black. Ethan found her unconscious on the kitchen floor and immediately rushed her to the hospital. After a series of tests, the doctor called them to his office with a grave expression. "Mrs. Blackwell," the doctor began, his voice laden with concern, "the results of your test show a congenital heart condition that, until now, had gone unnoticed." Olivia felt the world stop. Ethan squeezed her hand tightly, his face pale but determined. "What are our options, doctor?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling but firm. The doctor sighed. "The good news is that it's treatable. The bad news is that you'll need complex surgery and a long recovery period." "Andy," he paused, as if hesitating to continue. "And what, doctor?" Olivia insisted. "And you'll have to postpone any plans to have children for at least a couple of years. Pregnancy would be too risky in your current condition." The news fell like a bucket of cold water on the couple. They had been talking about starting a family, about filling their home with the sound of children's laughter. Now, that dream would have to wait. The following months were a whirlwind of medical appointments, surgeries, and recovery. Ethan stayed by Olivia's side every step of the way, dividing his time between the hospital and managing their businesses. Meanwhile, Flavors of the Village faced its own challenges. The rapid expansion had led to quality control issues in some of the new branches. Olivia, from her hospital bed, tried to manage the crisis as best she could, but the frustration of not being able to be there in person was eating away at her. One night, after a particularly difficult physiotherapy session, Olivia burst into tears. "I can't do this, Ethan," she sobbed. "I can't be the wife you deserve. I can't manage the business. I can't give you children. Maybe it would be better if—" Ethan interrupted her, taking her face in his hands. "Don't you dare finish that sentence, Olivia Blackwell. I love you. I love you for who you are, not for what you can or can't do. We'll get through this together, just like we've overcome everything else." That night marked a turning point. Olivia, inspired by Ethan's unwavering faith, found a new determination. She began working on her recovery with renewed vigor, and together they devised creative solutions to handle the problems of Flavors of the Village from a distance. However, fate had another test prepared for them. One morning, while Ethan was in an important meeting, he received an urgent call from his father. "Ethan, you need to come to the hospital immediately." Richard's voice sounded hoarse, as if he had been crying. "Your mother, she's had an accident." Ethan felt the world crumbling around him. His mother, Caroline, had always been the silent pillar of the Blackwell family. The idea of losing her was unbearable. He rushed to the hospital, his mind a whirlwind of memories and fears. Upon arrival, he found his father crumbled in the waiting room. "Dad, what happened?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Richard looked up, his eyes red and swollen. "A drunk driver. She was crossing the street and—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Ethan hugged his father, feeling years of tension and resentment dissolve in their shared pain. The following hours were an agony of waiting and uncertainty. When the surgeon finally came out to speak with them, his expression was grave. "We've managed to stabilize her, but—" The doctor paused, searching for the right words. "She's suffered significant brain damage. We don't know if she'll wake up, and if she does, it's likely she'll have permanent sequelae." Ethan felt the ground opening beneath his feet. How could it be that, just when things were starting to get better with Olivia, the universe would throw this new blow at him? Days turned into weeks, and Ethan found himself divided between two hospitals, one where his wife was struggling to recover, and another where his mother was clinging to life. It was Olivia who, despite her own condition, became Ethan's emotional pillar. "My love," she told him one night, as he rested his head on her lap. "I know it's hard, but you're not alone. We're in this together, as we've always been." Ethan looked at her, his eyes full of tears and love. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Olivia. You're my strength." "And you're mine," she replied, kissing his forehead. "And together, we'll be the strength your mother needs to recover." With renewed determination, Ethan and Olivia faced the challenges ahead. Olivia, still recovering, insisted on being transferred to the hospital where Caroline was so she could be close to the family. It was during one of her visits to Caroline that something unexpected happened. Olivia was reading to her mother-in-law, as she did every day, when she suddenly felt a slight squeeze on her hand. "Ethan!" she called, her voice trembling with emotion. "I think your mother just moved her hand." The doctors rushed to the room. After a series of tests, they confirmed what seemed like a miracle. Caroline was waking up from the coma. Caroline's recovery was slow and difficult, but each small progress was a victory for the Blackwell family. Ethan and Richard took turns being with her, reconciling in the process and forging a new relationship based on mutual respect and family love. Meanwhile, Olivia continued her own recovery, inspired by her mother-in-law's struggle. Together, daughter-in-law and mother-in-law became the symbol of resilience and strength for the Blackwell family. One day, as Ethan watched Olivia and his mother doing physiotherapy exercises together, laughing and encouraging each other, he realized something fundamental. True wealth, true success, wasn't in the buildings he built or the companies he ran. It was there, in the love and strength of his family. With tears in his eyes, Ethan joined them, grateful for the lessons life had taught him and excited for the future they had ahead, no matter what challenges they might face. What Ethan didn't know was that fate still had one last surprise in store for them, one that would change their lives in a way they never could have imagined. 6 months had passed since Caroline's accident, and life in the Blackwell family seemed to have found a new equilibrium. Caroline, although still in a wheelchair, had regained much of her cognitive abilities. Olivia, for her part, was almost fully recovered and had retaken the reins of Flavors of the Village. One morning, while having breakfast on the terrace of their penthouse, Olivia noticed that Ethan seemed distracted. "What's wrong, love?" she asked, taking his hand across the table. Ethan sighed. "It's the affordable housing project in Brooklyn. The city council is putting up obstacles and some investors are getting nervous." Olivia looked at him thoughtfully. "You know, I think I have an idea. How about we involve the community in the project? We could organize workshops, listen to their needs." Ethan's eyes lit up. "That's brilliant, Liv. We could even include spaces for small local businesses, like we did with Flavors of the Village." Excited about the new idea, the couple spent the rest of the morning planning. They were so absorbed that they almost didn't hear the phone ring. It was Dr. Harrison, Olivia's cardiologist. "Mrs. Blackwell, I need you to come to my office as soon as possible. I have the results of your latest exams and there's something we need to discuss in person." Olivia's heart skipped a beat. Had her condition worsened? Would she need another surgery? That afternoon, Ethan and Olivia sat in front of Dr. Harrison, holding hands and prepared for the worst. The doctor looked at them with an indecipherable expression. "Mrs. Blackwell, your exams show something." "Unexpected." Olivia squeezed Ethan's hand. "What is it, doctor? Please tell us." Dr. Harrison smiled. "You're pregnant." The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan and Olivia looked at each other, their faces a mixture of shock, fear, and a spark of joy. "But is it safe?" Ethan asked, his voice barely a whisper. "With Olivia's condition?" The doctor nodded. "I understand your concern." The pregnancy will be high risk and will require constant monitoring, but with the advances in her recovery and proper care, I believe it's possible to carry it to term safely. Olivia, with tears in her eyes, looked at Ethan. "What do you think, love? I know it's risky, but—" Ethan hugged her tightly. "I think you're the strongest woman I know, and that together we can overcome anything, if you want to try. I'll be by your side every step of the way." The following months were an emotional roller coaster. Olivia's pregnancy became the center of attention for the entire Blackwell family. Caroline, excited at the prospect of being a grandmother, found in it a new motivation for her rehabilitation. Richard, for his part, surprised everyone by becoming the most protective and caring grandfather-to-be imaginable. He spent hours researching prenatal nutrition and decorating the future baby's room. However, not everything was rosy. Olivia's pregnancy was delicate, and there were moments of real fear. At 5 months, a complication rushed her to the hospital. Ethan, sitting in the waiting room, relived all his fears. What if he lost Olivia? What if they lost the baby? How could he go on? It was in that moment of desperation that he felt a hand on his shoulder. Looking up, he saw his father. "Son," Richard said, his voice full of emotion, "I know you're scared. I am too. But if there's one thing I've learned from you and Olivia, it's that true love can overcome any obstacle. And that baby is the fruit of such a love." Ethan, moved by his father's words, hugged him, letting the tears flow freely. Fortunately, Olivia and the baby managed to overcome the crisis. The following months were of intensive care, with Olivia practically confined to absolute bed rest. But far from feeling frustrated, Olivia took advantage of this time to connect with her baby and plan for the future. It was during one of those afternoons of rest when Olivia had an epiphany. "Ethan," she said, as he applied cream to her swollen belly, "what if we create a foundation?" Ethan looked at her, intrigued. "A foundation?" Olivia nodded, excited. "Yes, a foundation to support high-risk mothers who don't have the resources we have. We could offer medical care, psychological support, even financial help." Ethan's eyes sparkled. "It's a wonderful idea, love, and we could link it with the affordable housing project, offer adapted homes for these families." Thus was born the New Dawn Foundation, a project that would soon become the pride of the Blackwell family and a beacon of hope for many families in New York City. Finally, after months of anxiety, hope, and love, the big day arrived. Olivia went into labor on a spring afternoon. The hours that followed were intense. Ethan, by her side the entire time, alternated between fear and excitement. Caroline and Richard waited outside, along with Olivia's parents, all united in anticipation. And then, in the middle of the night, a cry was heard. A strong, vigorous cry, full of life. "It's a girl," the doctor announced. Placing the baby in Olivia's arms, Ethan, with tears in his eyes, looked at his daughter. She was perfect. Small, pink, with a tuft of dark hair and eyes. Olivia's eyes. "Hello, Hope," Olivia whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Welcome to the world." Ethan embraced his family, feeling like his heart could burst with happiness. At that moment, all the trials, all the obstacles they had faced, seemed worth it. As the family entered to meet the new member, Ethan felt that his life had reached a point of fullness he never thought possible. Seeing his parents, Olivia's parents, all gathered around Hope, was the image of everything he had ever dreamed of, without even knowing it. The months following Hope's birth were a whirlwind of emotions and adjustments for the Blackwell family. Ethan and Olivia immersed themselves fully in their new role as parents, discovering together the joys and challenges of parenthood. Olivia, still recovering from childbirth and dealing with her heart condition, found in motherhood a strength she didn't know she possessed. Ethan, for his part, marveled each day at the little things. Hope's first smile, her first babble, the way her tiny fingers clung to his. However, life had new challenges prepared for the couple. One morning, as Ethan was reviewing reports from the New Dawn Foundation, He received an urgent call from one of his partners in the Brooklyn Affordable Housing Project. "Ethan, we have a problem." The voice on the other end of the line sounded tense. "The city council has halted the works. They say we've violated some building regulations." Ethan felt the world crashing down around him. This project was more than just a business. It was the materialization of everything he and Olivia believed in, a way to give back to the community. "I'm on my way," he said, trying to maintain calm. When he told Olivia, she insisted on accompanying him. "We're a team, remember? We'll face this together." Leaving Hope in Caroline's care, who had become a devoted grandmother, Ethan and Olivia headed to City Hall. The following hours were a bureaucratic battle. It turned out that some of the permits were not in order, and there were accusations that the project did not meet certain safety standards. It was Olivia who, in the midst of the tension, had a brilliant idea. "What if we invite the city officials to visit the foundation?" she proposed. "Let them see firsthand the impact we're having. We could even organize a tour of the neighborhood, let them talk to the residents." Ethan looked at her with admiration. "You're a genius, you know that." The strategy worked. After seeing the foundation's work and hearing testimonies from the benefited families, the officials became more open to dialogue. An agreement was reached. The project could continue with some modifications, and the New Dawn Foundation would commit to offering job training programs for neighborhood residents. This victory not only saved the project, but also strengthened the Blackwells' reputation as entrepreneurs committed to social welfare. However, success brought with it a new series of challenges. The demand for the foundation's services grew exponentially, and soon Ethan and Olivia found themselves working more hours than they would like, trying to balance their professional responsibilities with their family life. One night, after putting Hope to bed, Olivia found Ethan on the balcony, looking thoughtfully at the illuminated city. "What are you thinking about, love?" she asked, hugging him from behind. Ethan sighed. "Everything and nothing. How our life has changed, all we've accomplished, and all that's still left to do." Olivia turned him to look into his eyes. "Ethan Blackwell, listen to me well. We've faced lies, prejudices, illnesses, and crises, and here we are, stronger than ever. Whatever happens, we'll overcome it together." Ethan kissed her, feeling his worries dissolve in the love they shared. "You're right. Together we can handle anything." That conversation marked a turning point. Ethan and Olivia decided it was time to restructure their lives and businesses to find a better balance. They began by delegating more responsibilities in the Blackwell Group and Flavors of the Village. Richard Mee, who had discovered a new passion for social work, offered to take a more active role in the foundation. They also decided to expand their family. After consulting with doctors and ensuring that Olivia's health allowed it, they began trying for another child. Months passed, full of hope and anticipation. And then, almost 2 years after Hope's birth, Olivia gave the news everyone was waiting for. She was pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy progressed with fewer complications. It seemed that Olivia's body had strengthened, and her heart was beating stronger than ever. It was on an autumn afternoon when Matthew arrived in the world, filling the Blackwell home with joy. Hope, now a lively 2-year-old, was delighted with her role as big sister. Seeing his 2 children together, Ethan felt his heart expanding in a way he didn't believe possible. He looked at Olivia, who was holding Matthew in her arms, and saw in her eyes the same infinite love he felt. "You know," Olivia said, smiling, "I think we finally have it all." Ethan nodded, embracing his family. "No, my love, we have more than everything." As the sun set over New York City, bathing the city in golden hues, the Blackwell family prepared for a new stage of their life. A stage full of challenges, no doubt, but also brimming with love, hope, and the certainty that, together, they could overcome any obstacle. What they didn't know was that fate still had one last surprise in store for them, one that would test everything they had built and make them question the true meaning of success and happiness.